Nothing says I'm having a midlife crisis quite like finding your husband canoodling with your son's girlfriend's mom while you're stranded with a dead Subaru on Main Street. Talk about multitasking, destroying both our marriage and our son's relationship in one efficient afternoon. My supposedly reliable Subaru chose the absolute perfect moment to dramatically give up its will to live, right in front of the gleaming glass facade of Oakmont Plaza in downtown Hartford. As I sat on the curb, mascara probably making me look like a raccoon who'd just been told the trash cans were all empty, I called the tow truck company. "We'll be there in approximately 45 minutes, ma'am," the bored dispatcher informed me, which in tow truck language translates to, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe never. Surprise. I was midway through my third game of mindless phone solitaire when the revolving doors of Oakmont Plaza spun, and out walked my husband of 19 years. Samuel Walker, financial advisor, father of our son, and apparently world-class sneaky bastard, had his arm wrapped intimately around the waist of a woman whose highlighted blonde bob I recognized immediately. Lorraine Landry, mother of Tess, who happened to be dating our son Wyatt, the same Lorraine who scrutinized my Thanksgiving cranberry sauce last year and announced to the entire table that it had that telltale jiggle of coming from a can, before placing a conspicuous bite on her fork and pushing it aside. My brain short-circuited as I watched them laugh together, Samuel's hand sliding down to rest just above her tailored pencil skirt. They hadn't noticed me, half hidden behind my dead car, still wearing the blazer I'd worn to my marketing team meeting earlier. In a moment of what I can only describe as vengeful genius, or perhaps temporary insanity, I did what any self-respecting betrayed wife would do in the digital age. I angled my phone camera carefully, making sure to capture my stunned expression in the foreground while Samuel and Lorraine remained clearly visible in the background. I added a filter to hide my smudged mascara and hit send to our family group chat with the caption, "Look who I caught planning the surprise engagement party." For context, there was no engagement. My 18-year-old son Wyatt and his girlfriend Tess were college freshmen who'd been dating for all of 8 months. But that didn't stop my message from causing an immediate digital earthquake. My phone exploded with notifications. Wyatt sent 17 question marks in a row, followed by, "What engagement?" My mother-in-law Beverly called 3 times in succession. Samuel's sister Denise, who had always suspected her brother of being too charming for his own good, sent a simple, "I knew it." While my phone vibrated itself nearly off the curb, I watched Samuel and Lorraine finally notice my message. Their faces transformed from laughter to horror in a synchronized display that should qualify them for the Olympics of "oh shit" expressions. Samuel's phone appeared in his hand instantly. I declined his call with a swipe that felt more satisfying than any stress ball I'd ever squeezed. Lorraine was frantically typing on her phone too, likely trying to explain to her daughter why she was wrapped around her boyfriend's father like a cashmere scarf on a cold New England day. I stood up, brushed off my pants, and approached them with the calm demeanor of a woman who had just set fire to her life and was quite enjoying the warmth. "Shirley," Samuel's voice cracked like he was 13 again, "this isn't what it looks like," I finished for him, enjoying how his Adam's apple bobbed nervously. "Of course not. It never is it?" Lorraine stepped forward, her Botoxed forehead attempting and failing to form a concerned wrinkle. "Shirley, we were just discussing the surprise engagement party, I know." I smiled so widely my cheeks hurt. "That's what I told everyone. Very thoughtful of you both to be so involved in our children's lives. So involved." Before either of them could respond, my phone rang. It was Tess calling. I answered and put it on speaker. "Mrs. Walker, is Wyatt proposing to me?" Her voice trembled with a mixture of confusion and excitement. "He's not answering my calls. And my mom isn't either, and—" "Oh, sweetie," I cut in, staring directly at Lorraine, whose complexion had gone from spray-tanned gold to ghostly white. "Why don't you ask your mother? She's right here with me and your future father-in-law." I held out the phone. Lorraine looked at it like I was offering her a live grenade. "Tess, honey," she finally stammered, "there's been a misunderstanding." "Mom? What are you doing with Wyatt's dad? I thought you were showing houses in Glastonbury today." Samuel's eyes darted between my face and the phone, his mouth opening and closing like a goldfish that had just realized its bowl was actually a blender. "I need to go," I said pleasantly, ending the call. "My tow truck just arrived. But don't worry, I've already unblocked our joint credit card so you can take a nice Uber home, Samuel. Or perhaps Lorraine can give you a ride. She seems very accommodating." As if on cue, the AAA truck pulled up beside my dead Subaru, the driver hopping out with a clipboard. I turned and walked away from the wreckage, both automotive and marital, with the strange lightness that comes from knowing you've just changed the trajectory of your life with one impulsive text message. By the time I slid into the passenger seat of the tow truck, my phone showed 27 missed calls and 43 new messages. I silenced it and looked at my wedding ring. The diamond caught the afternoon light, sending little rainbows across the dashboard. 19 years, one son now in college, a mortgage on our West Hartford Colonial, and a lab retriever mix named Cooper, who still expected us both to come home tonight. "Where to, ma'am?" the driver asked. "Applebee's on Farmington Avenue," I replied. "I'm organizing a family meeting." As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of Samuel and Lorraine in the side mirror, still standing frozen on the sidewalk. I'd always considered myself the stable one, the planner who kept our family running while Samuel charmed clients and brought home commissions. Little did he know I was also the strategist who would dismantle our marriage with the same efficiency I used to organize our tax documents every April. I pulled up the banking app on my phone and took a screenshot of Samuel's recent transactions. $179 at La Maison Dorée restaurant last Thursday, when he claimed to be at a client dinner, $312 at Tiffany & Co.'s 3 days ago, and multiple charges at Hartford Grand Hotel, conveniently located in, guess where, Oakmont Plaza. "Check and mate, Samuel," I murmured, forwarding the screenshots to my personal email as the first additions to what would soon become my divorce dossier. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Rough day?" I laughed, feeling the hysterical edge to it but not caring. "Let's just say I'm having an unexpected career change. From marketing manager to private investigator to divorce plaintiff, all in one afternoon. And the most terrifying part? I couldn't wait for what came next. The Applebee's hostess looked at me like I'd asked for a table at Le Bernardin when I requested somewhere private, preferably with good acoustics for an emotional breakdown. We have a corner booth?" she offered, twirling a laminated menu nervously. "Perfect. I'll need seating for 6 people, unlimited mozzarella sticks, and your strongest non-alcoholic beverage because I'm about to orchestrate the suburban equivalent of Game of Thrones' Red Wedding." I smiled sweetly. Just with less actual bloodshed and more passive-aggressive comments about who gets to keep the KitchenAid mixer, I settled into the vinyl booth and began arranging the evidence like a prosecutor prepping for a career-making case. Bank statements, hotel receipts, and screenshots of texts I'd extracted from our shared iPad. Samuel never did figure out that the cloud synced everything. For a financial advisor, he was remarkably dense about digital footprints. My phone rang again. Wyatt. "Mom, what's happening? Dad's not answering, Tess is crying, and Grandma Beverly keeps asking if she needs to buy a mother of the groom dress." "Honey," I said calmly, "your father and Tess's mom have been playing an adult version of 7 Minutes in Heaven for what appears to be several months now. There's no engagement party. That was just my creative way of exposing their little affair to the family WhatsApp all at once. Very efficient, don't you think?" Silence. Then, "Are you having a nervous breakdown? Should I call someone?" "Already did. I've invited your father, Tess, her mother, Aunt Denise, and your grandmother to Applebee's at 5:30. You should come too. I ordered those potato twisters you like." I paused. "And sweetheart, this isn't a nervous breakdown. It's a strategic dismantling of 19 years of lies with a side of ranch dressing." Wyatt arrived first, sliding into the booth with the shell-shocked expression of someone whose parents and girlfriend's mother had just detonated his entire concept of family. He'd driven straight from UConn's campus, still wearing his university sweatshirt. "Mom, please tell me this is some kind of weird midlife crisis joke." I slid my phone across the table, open to a gallery of evidence I'd labeled, "Reasons Mommy and Daddy Are Getting Divorced." Wyatt scrolled through it, his face cycling through disbelief, disgust, and finally, that distinctly teenage expression that says, My parents are not only embarrassing, but apparently complete disasters as human beings. Dad's been sleeping with Tess's mom? For how long? He finally managed. Based on the credit card evidence, at least 6 months. Remember when he suddenly started using that cologne that smells like a lumberjack dipped in vanilla extract? That was your first clue. Wyatt dropped his head into his hands. This is going to destroy Tess. Actually, I said, sipping my virgin strawberry daiquiri, I think it's going to make Thanksgiving a lot less awkward. No more pretending to like Lorraine's dry turkey and judgmental comments about my cranberry sauce. The restaurant door swung open, and in walked Tess, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, eyes red-rimmed. She spotted us and hurried over, sliding in next to Wyatt. Mrs. Walker, please, under the circumstances, call me Shirley. Shirley, she corrected, voice cracking. My mom says there's some misunderstanding? That she and your husband, Mr. Walker, were plotting behind our backs to make inappropriate life choices that affect everyone? Yes, that part's accurate. I passed her a mozzarella stick. Comfort food helps. Trust me. Tess took it absently. But they're saying they weren't, auditioning for a spot on a reality show called Hartford's Most Shameless? I supplied. Let's wait for them to arrive so they can explain exactly what my husband's credit card was doing at the Hartford Grand Hotel 7 times in the last month. The door opened again, and in walked Samuel and Lorraine, looking like 2 people heading to their own execution. Trailing behind them was my sister-in-law Denise, whose expression of barely contained glee suggested she'd been waiting 19 years for her brother to finally screw up badly enough to warrant a full family tribunal. "Where's Beverly?" I asked cheerfully as they approached. "Mom's on her way," Samuel muttered, sliding awkwardly into the booth, maintaining maximum distance from both me and Lorraine. "Shirley, this is completely— If you say not what it looks like one more time, Samuel, I swear I will recite your credit card statement from memory in front of your son." I smiled brightly at our waitress who was hovering nearby. "Could we get another round of mozzarella sticks? We're celebrating my husband's recent promotion to community homewrecker." The waitress retreated faster than Samuel's hairline had in his 30s. Lorraine cleared her throat. "Shirley, what happened today was unfortunate timing. Samuel and I were meeting to discuss real estate," I offered. "Let me guess. You were showing him properties with particularly sturdy bedroom furniture?" Tess made a strangled noise. Wyatt looked like he wanted to dive under the table. "Mom," Samuel said, turning to Tess, "maybe we should discuss this in private." "Oh no," I cut in. "If there's one thing I've learned today, it's that privacy is overrated. Like your wedding vows, apparently." Denise snorted, earning glares from both Samuel and Lorraine. "I just want to understand," Tess said quietly. "How long has this been going on?" Before either of them could answer, I pulled out a manila folder. "According to my investigation, which took all of 20 minutes using our shared accounts, Samuel, you really should work on your password security. Approximately 6 months. That lines up with Lorraine's divorce from Jeffrey being finalized in April, doesn't it?" Samuel's face went from pale to crimson. "You've been investigating me?" "No, I've been planning our anniversary trip to Vermont." "Of course I've been investigating you. What did you expect me to do after I caught you playing tonsil hockey with the mother of our son's girlfriend?" Beverly chose that moment to make her entrance, her petite frame somehow filling the entire Applebee's as she marched toward our table with the determination of a woman who raised 3 boys in the pre-internet era and feared nothing. "Samuel James Walker," she began without preamble, using all 3 names like a verbal guillotine. "Please tell me I did not drive all the way from West Hartford in rush hour traffic to hear you've been cheating on Shirley with—" She squinted at Lorraine. "This woman who criticized my daughter-in-law's perfectly good cranberry sauce last Thanksgiving." The waitress, who had approached with our mozzarella sticks, slowly backed away again, clearly sensing this wasn't a "can I get you anything else?" moment. "And to think," I said, looking directly at Samuel, "I've spent 19 years defending your habit of leaving wet towels on the bathroom floor, telling myself it was a quirk and not a character flaw. Turns out, the towels were just the tip of your personal Titanic." The Applebee's manager approached our table with the cautious expression of a man who'd seen his fair share of family meltdowns over half-price appetizers. Is everything okay over here? He asked, eyeing the spread of bank statements and my increasingly theatrical hand gestures. Absolutely fantastic, I beamed. We're just having a little family meeting about adultery, betrayal, and who gets custody of the Costco membership. The mozzarella sticks are excellent, by the way. He retreated faster than Samuel's investment clients after the 2008 financial crisis. Surely. Samuel leaned forward, lowering his voice to his closing the deal tone he used with clients. Can we please discuss this like rational adults? Like the rational adults who booked the same hotel room 7 times using our joint credit card? That kind of rational? I turned to Beverly. Did you know your son paid for a couples massage at the Hartford Grand Spa last month while I was visiting my sister in Providence? Apparently, the couple wasn't us. Beverly looked at her son like he was something unpleasant she'd found on the bottom of her sensible Clark's shoes. Samuel James, I raised you better than this. Lorraine, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly straightened up. This isn't entirely Samuel's fault. Oh, did you trip and accidentally fall into an inappropriate relationship with him? I asked, genuinely curious about what mental gymnastics she was about to perform. No, she said, her perfectly highlighted hair not moving as she shook her head. But there's something you don't know. The table went silent. Even Denise, who had been enjoying this spectacle like it was a front row seat to Hamilton, stopped mid-bite of her potato skin. Samuel and I weren't just having an affair, Lorraine continued. We were planning to tell you both next week. We've decided to start a real estate investment company together. The meetings at the hotel were with potential investors. I blinked. Once. Twice. So you're saying it was a business affair and a regular affair? Multitasking. How efficient. It's not like that, Samuel protested. The business came first, and then you decided the business partnership needed a physical component? Like a very inappropriate team-building exercise? Wyatt made a sound like a deflating balloon. Tess stared at her mother with an expression that teenage daughters have perfected since the dawn of time. Pure, unfiltered disappointment with a side of mortification. Mom? She said quietly. You told me you were showing houses when you were meeting Wyatt's dad? Technically, I was discussing houses, Lorraine replied weakly. Oh my God. Tess turned to Wyatt. Our parents are worse than the couple in that Netflix show about the real estate agents who sleep with their clients. Selling Sunset? Offered Denise helpfully. The business is real, Samuel insisted, pulling out his phone. Walker Landry Properties. We've already registered the LLC. And that's when I had my epiphany. Shining, brilliant, and sharp enough to cut through 19 years of marriage and 6 months of lies. I started laughing. A genuine belly laugh that had the family at the next table staring. Walker Landry Properties, I repeated, wiping an actual tear from my eye. You registered an LLC together? With our family lawyer? Samuel nodded cautiously, clearly confused by my reaction. Alan Friedman? The same Alan who handled our wills and knows about the prenuptial agreement your father insisted we sign? The one that specifically mentions infidelity as grounds for forfeiture of the asset protection clause? Samuel's face went the color of the ketchup bottle on our table. What prenup clause? Beverly asked sharply. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my emails. The one where if either party is proven to have committed infidelity, they forfeit their claim to the appreciated assets acquired during marriage. Your late husband was very traditional that way, Beverly. Remember how he made us sign it after Samuel's brother's messy divorce? That's not enforceable, Samuel said. But his financial advisor confidence was cracking. That clause is archaic. Maybe, I agreed cheerfully. But Connecticut is an equitable distribution state, and judges just hate adulterers who start businesses with their affair partners before informing their spouses. Almost as much as they hate when said adulterers use marital assets to fund hotel rooms for their extracurricular activities. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a surge of control. While Samuel had been playing house with Lorraine, I'd been inadvertently building a case that would make any divorce attorney salivate. Samuel, I continued, now utterly calm, did you happen to register this LLC in both your names using our home address as the business address? The home that's still in both our names? His silence was confirmation enough. And Lorraine, as a real estate agent, did you advise him on this setup? Because that sounds an awful lot like you using professional expertise to help my husband divert marital assets. Lorraine's spray tan couldn't hide the flush creeping up her neck. Mom, Wyatt interrupted, what are you saying? I'm saying, I smiled, gathering my evidence into a neat stack, that while your father thought he was being clever, he was actually documenting his affair in triplicate and filing it with the state of Connecticut. I stood up, smoothing my blazer. Now, if you'll all excuse me, I need to make a quick phone call. I hear the law offices of Diana Martinez are excellent for high-asset divorces involving documented infidelity. I walked toward the restrooms, my legs somehow steady despite everything. Once inside, I locked myself in a stall, leaned against the door, and took 3 deep breaths. Then I did something I hadn't done all day. I called my best friend, Meredith. You will not believe the day I'm having, I whispered when she answered. 20 minutes and 1 actual call to Diana Martinez's office later. They could see me tomorrow at 2 p.m. I returned to find a very different tableau. Samuel was slumped in his seat, looking like he'd aged 10 years. Lorraine was staring at her phone, furiously texting. Beverly had moved to sit beside me, clearly having chosen her side in this domestic war. Denise was explaining something to Wyatt and Tess in low tones, occasionally shooting daggers at her brother. Did I miss anything? I asked, sliding back into the booth. Dad says they were going to tell us next week, Wyatt said flatly. After they secured funding for their first property? How thoughtful, I remarked, taking a sip of my now watery virgin daiquiri. And what about the part where you both lied to your children for 6 months? That was wrong, Samuel admitted, finally looking me in the eye. Surely, I know you're angry. Angry doesn't quite capture it, Samuel. When you leave the toilet seat up, I'm angry. When you shrink my cashmere sweater in the dryer, I'm angry. Finding out you've been playing real estate mogul with Tess's mom while simultaneously playing hide the assets with our finances? That's not anger. That's clarity. The waitress appeared with our check, sliding it as far from the epicenter of our drama as possible while still technically delivering it to our table. Oh, Samuel will be handling that, I said brightly. Won't you, dear? Consider it the first payment in your alimony. 2 weeks later, I sat across from Diana Martinez in her sleek downtown Hartford office, watching her perfectly manicured fingers tap through Samuel's financial records on her tablet. So, Diana looked up with the smile of a shark who'd just spotted a particularly plump seal. Not only did your husband register an LLC with his mistress using your marital address, but he also opened a separate business account using funds transferred from your joint savings. And he did this all while still being legally bound by a prenup with an infidelity clause. Samuel has always been an overachiever, I remarked dryly. Why have a simple affair when you can simultaneously commit financial infidelity too? Diana chuckled. In my 15 years as a divorce attorney, I've seen some spectacular self-sabotage, but your husband deserves some kind of award for documenting his own downfall so thoroughly. I took a sip of the actually decent coffee her assistant had brought. So what happens now? Now, Diana said, leaning back in her chair. We send their fledgling business straight to the nest of a Connecticut family court judge who, coincidentally, is known for his traditional views on marriage. Judge Henderson lost his first wife to his business partner 30 years ago. He holds quite the grudge. The universe really did have a sense of humor sometimes. Since that fateful Tuesday at Applebee's, my life had transformed into a strange alternate reality, where I was suddenly the most interesting gossip in our social circle. Samuel had moved into a sad little extended-stay hotel near his office. Lorraine, according to Tess, who was still dating Wyatt despite everything, had been put on probation by her real estate broker for ethical concerns after news of their business venture got out. Meanwhile, I'd discovered skills I never knew I possessed, like the ability to track down every investor Samuel and Lorraine had approached, introducing myself as the soon-to-be ex-wife who owns half of everything they're trying to sell you. Amazing how quickly potential investors lose interest when they realize they might be purchasing a lawsuit along with their property shares. We have the upper hand, Diana continued, but we need to move quickly. The initial hearing is set for next Monday at 10 a.m. and... My phone buzzed with a text from Beverly. Darling, Just wanted to confirm lunch tomorrow. Also, Samuel called saying something about wanting to be reasonable. I told him he should have thought about reasonable before he started using your Amex points for hotel stays with that bottle blonde homewrecker. I smiled. Having your mother-in-law firmly on your side during a divorce was like having a general defect to your army with all the enemy's battle plans. Diana, what would you think about offering a settlement? I asked. One that heavily favors me, of course. Normally, I'd say let's take him for everything, she replied. But a quick settlement would save you months of stress and legal fees. What did you have in mind? I outlined my proposal. By the time I finished, Diana was looking at me with newfound respect. Mrs. Walker, you missed your calling as a divorce attorney. I spent 19 years married to a financial advisor. I learned a thing or two about leveraging assets. 2 days later, we sat in a conference room at Diana's office. Me, Samuel, and his attorney, a nervous young man who kept glancing at Diana like she might bite him. Which, professionally speaking, she absolutely would. Let's be clear, Diana began. We have documented evidence of infidelity, misuse of marital assets, and attempted diversion of funds. In Connecticut, that's the trifecta of you're screwed in divorce court. Samuel's attorney shuffled his papers. My client is willing to offer a fair division of... We're not here for your offer, I interrupted. We're here for your acceptance of ours. Diana slid the proposal across the table. I watched Samuel's face as he read it. Confusion, then shock, then outrage, then the slow, dawning realization that he had no leverage whatsoever. This is highway robbery, he spluttered. You want the house, 70% of our investments, full ownership of my retirement accounts, and the Subaru? The Subaru that broke down and exposed your affair? It seems fitting. Consider it karma with a warranty. And what exactly am I supposed to get? He demanded. Freedom from the prenup consequences you triggered, which would actually leave you with far less, Diana answered smoothly. Plus, Mrs. Walker is generously allowing you to keep your clothing, your golf clubs, and the business contacts you haven't already alienated by trying to start a company with your mistress. Samuel turned to me, desperation evident. Surely, we were together 19 years. Doesn't that count for anything? It counted for everything, Samuel. That's why I'm allowing you to keep Cooper every other weekend. Our dog still loves you, which says more about his loyalty than yours. Later that evening, as I was relaying the details to Wyatt over dinner at the Cheesecake Factory, his choice, not mine. Apparently, emotional trauma calls for oversized portions and a 14-page menu. He shook his head in disbelief. So Dad basically has to start over? At 45? He'll survive, I assured him, spearing a piece of avocado egg roll. The settlement allows him to keep his job and his client list. He just can't access the fruits of our joint labors that he was so casually willing to share with Lorraine. Wyatt frowned. About that? Tess told me they've called off their business partnership. Apparently none of the investors will touch them with a 10-foot pole now. How tragic, I said, not bothering to hide my smile. Who could have predicted that a business built on deception might face trust issues? Mom, you didn't... I may have sent a few emails, I admitted. Just introducing myself as the legal co-owner of half their prospective business assets. Pure courtesy, really. Wyatt looked torn between horror and reluctant admiration. Remind me never to cross you. That's wise. I raised a smart boy. I patted his hand. Speaking of Tess, how are things going with you two? Weird, but okay. We've bonded over having the most embarrassing parents in Connecticut. She's actually coming over later. We're thinking of starting a support group. My parents tried to become the Brady Bunch, surviving family merger disasters. As we finished dinner, my phone lit up with a text from Samuel. Signed the papers. Diana will file tomorrow. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. 19 years, reduced to a text message apology. When I got home, I walked through the house that was now officially mine alone. I poured myself a glass of the expensive Cabernet Samuel had been saving for a special occasion, kicked off my shoes, and settled onto the couch. Cooper jumped up beside me, resting his head on my lap with a contented sigh. It's just us now, Coop. I scratched behind his ears. Well, Except for the weekends when you have to pretend to be happy to see your father while he feeds you those terrible processed treats. My phone buzzed again. A message from Meredith. Divorce papers filed. Time to celebrate. The girls and I are taking you out Saturday. No excuses. Attached was a photo of a cocktail menu from Hartford's newest rooftop bar with Shirley's Freedom Tour, written across the top in Meredith's loopy handwriting. I took another sip of Samuel's special occasion wine. It tasted like victory. Slightly bitter, unexpectedly complex, but ultimately satisfying. 6 months after my Subaru died a heroic death exposing my husband's affair, I found myself sitting on my patio, yes, my patio now, hosting a Reclaiming My Life barbecue. The spring air was warm. Cooper was chasing butterflies across the freshly landscaped yard, thanks to the gardener I could now afford since I wasn't subsidizing Samuel's secret hotel rendezvous, and my friends were scattered across the lawn drinking wine I hadn't had to justify purchasing. To Shirley, Meredith raised her glass, who turned lemons into a margarita, garnished it with her ex-husband's tears, and is now serving it at her own victory party. Everyone cheered. Even Wyatt and Tess, who had managed to salvage their relationship despite their parents' best efforts to make family gatherings awkward for all eternity. Speech, demanded Beverly, who had flown in from her new condo in Florida specifically for this occasion. Apparently, watching her son's marriage implode had inspired her to finally pursue her dream of retiring somewhere she could wear flip-flops in February. I stood, feeling surprisingly steady for someone 3 glasses into a Sunday afternoon. 6 months ago, I thought my life was ending when my car broke down outside Oakmont Plaza. Turns out, it was just beginning. I glanced around at the faces of people who had carried me through the darkest winter of my life. They say when one door closes, another opens. What they don't tell you is that sometimes you need to slam that first door so hard the whole house shakes. And change the locks, added Denise, who had appointed herself my personal divorce cheerleader. The interesting thing about betrayal, I continued, swirling my wine thoughtfully, is how it forces you to confront who you really are. For 19 years, I was Samuel's wife, Wyatt's mother, the woman who remembered to buy toilet paper and schedule the chimney cleaning. I was so busy maintaining our life that I forgot to have my own. I gestured to the newly painted blue door of my house, a color Samuel had always vetoed as too coastal for our traditional colonial. Now, I'm just Shirley. Shirley, who painted her front door the color of the Mediterranean because she felt like it. Shirley, who booked a solo trip to Portugal for her birthday. Shirley, who finally took those ceramics classes she's been talking about since 2015. Shirley, who crushed her ex-husband in divorce court, Meredith interjected. Well, yes, that too, I laughed. But strangely, that's not the victory that matters most. I looked over at Wyatt, who was watching me with a mixture of pride and mild embarrassment, as all children view their parents when they're being reflective in front of an audience. The real win wasn't getting the house or the investments. It was discovering that I'm actually pretty good at handling crisis. And I make much better financial decisions than my certified financial advisor ex-husband, which is both ironic and oddly satisfying. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Samuel. Cooper left his heart medication at my place, dropping it off tomorrow. Samuel was now living in a modest condo across town, driving a used Hyundai, and dating a pharmaceutical sales rep named Kimberly, who, according to Wyatt's reluctant reconnaissance, was actually pretty nice and doesn't criticize anyone's cranberry sauce. Lorraine had fared less well. Her real estate broker had quietly asked her to join a different agency, citing reputational concerns. She'd moved to Glastonbury to restart her career, which conveniently put her in a different school district than the one where other mothers had taken to calling her the home wrecker, and not because of her skills with a sledgehammer during renovations. Tess had forgiven her mother, but with the kind of conditional teenage forgiveness that came with frequent reminders of her transgression. Remember when you nearly ruined my relationship by sleeping with my boyfriend's father? Had apparently become Tess's go-to response whenever Lorraine asked her to clean her room. I've learned some things over these past 6 months, I said, raising my glass again. First, always check your joint credit card statements. Second, prenups are worth their weight in gold. And third, There's nothing quite like the clarity that comes from watching your husband walk out of a hotel with your son's girlfriend's mother. To clarity, Beverly toasted, with the enthusiasm of someone who had also discovered freedom after decades of compromise. Later, as the party wound down and guests departed with leftover cupcakes and slightly tipsy hugs, Wyatt helped me clean up. "You're different now, Mom," he observed, rinsing a wine glass. "Different bad or different good?" "Different good," he decided. "You laugh more. Even when you were mad at Dad, you seemed more, I don't know, alive." "Turns out righteous indignation is quite energizing," I said, bumping his hip with mine. "How are things with you and Tess? Still surviving the parent debacle?" "We're thinking of it as an elaborate test of our relationship. If we can get through family dinners where her mom once dated my dad, we can get through anything." "That's a healthy perspective. Plus," he added with a grin, "it makes for a killer college application essay. How I survived my parents' midlife crisis and found inner strength." As Wyatt headed back to campus that evening, I settled onto my patio with Cooper and a final glass of wine. The sunset painted the sky in streaks of pink and gold, a watercolor finale to a day that felt significant in ways I couldn't quite articulate. My phone pinged with a notification, a memory from 1 year ago. A photo of Samuel and me at some charity gala, smiling with the practiced ease of a long-married couple. I barely recognized that woman with her careful makeup and cautious smile. "Here's to automotive failure," I toasted to the empty garden, the unexpected catalyst for finding myself at 42. Cooper woofed in agreement, loyal as ever to whoever was currently holding the cheese. Life, too, or as Meredith had dubbed it, was turning out to be an interesting upgrade. Not bug-free, certainly, but with features I never knew I wanted until I had them.